Donald Trump's federal trial over alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election is now set to begin on March 4th of next year. That's the day before Super Tuesday. It is just one of the 4 criminal trials Trump faces in 4 different jurisdictions. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has details.
As the Republican primary heats up next spring, so might a criminal trial about the last presidential election. A judge in Washington, D.C., penciling in March of 2024 for federal prosecutors to begin their case against Donald Trump for trying to overturn the 2020 election. Judge Tanya Chutkan rejected the former president's bid to delay the trial until after next year's election, emphasizing the public's interest in seeing this case resolved in a timely manner.
The trial date could slide, but not because Mr. Trump is going to prevail on appeal.
The Republican frontrunner's political calendar now on a collision course with his trials, and his rivals are pouncing.
You don't go with someone who's going to be in a courtroom longer than they're going to be campaigning.
That March 4th date in Washington, the same day Georgia prosecutors have asked for their state trial to start on election interference. And it's the day before Super Tuesday, when more than a dozen states hold their Republican primaries. It's also just 3 weeks shy of Mr. Trump's trial in New York, where he stands accused of falsifying business records to cover up an alleged affair before the 2016 election. 2 months after that, another trial set for his alleged mishandling of classified documents in Florida. Mr. Trump has denied all wrongdoing in each case, continuing to attack the prosecutors online, while in a courtroom in Georgia, his former chief of staff took to the witness stand for nearly 5 hours. Mark Meadows defending his own actions from around the last election as he tries to move his Fulton County racketeering case over to federal court.
They want to put him on the stand for a limited purpose, which is for him to claim that he was acting in the scope of his official duties.
But that effort was undercut by another Republican at the heart of that case, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who testified that infamous call he fielded from Mr. Trump asking for him to find votes in Georgia was only about helping the Trump campaign.
NBC's Laura Jarrett reporting for us there. And joining us now, NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley outside the U.S. District Court in Washington, and former U.S. Attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Joyce Vance. Good morning to you both. Ryan, I'll start with you. You were at the courthouse yesterday. What was the wrangling like inside the courtroom between the judge, between prosecutors, and Trump's defense team over this date that ended up on March 4th?
You know, there was a lot of back and forth, but I think the prosecution team came pretty prepared. And the defense team, John Lauro, didn't really have enough of an argument that would convince the judge. Obviously, the judge let the date slide a little bit that the special counsel had requested. They wanted this trial to actually get underway in December, really, with jury selection, and then have the actual trial and opening arguments start at the very beginning of the year, just before the 3-year anniversary of January the 6th. But ultimately, it's a pretty good big win, I think, for prosecutors here. And I thought what was really fascinating was the judge just fully setting aside any of these political considerations. I don't even know if it was clear to her that Super Tuesday was the day after the trial date that she set, but essentially comparing Donald Trump to a professional athlete and saying that, you know, if this were a professional athlete who were appearing before her, she would not be taking into consideration their sports schedule, and she's not going to take into consideration Donald Trump's sort of side gig running for president of the United States here. That's not what his focus should really be, she seemed to say, saying that he needs to be in court for these dates no matter what else is going on in his life, and really making this case the biggest priority for him going forward, Willie.
So, Joyce, this is more than 6 months as we sit here today until that March 4th date, which I think in any other case you'd say that's plenty of time for a defense team to get ready. What do you make of the choice, which was a little bit later than Jack Smith wanted? He wanted an ambitious January date, of course, and of course well before the request that most deemed as ludicrous by the Trump team to have the trial in 2026.
Right. 2026 might have as well have been a request to have the trial never. And Judge Chutkan saw straight through that. So trial judges have a lot of discretion, Willie, when it comes to setting a date for trial. They have to make sure that a defendant has sufficient time to prepare. And Judge Chutkan did what good trial judges do. She was worried in this hearing yesterday about protecting her record on appeal, so that if there is a conviction and Trump appeals this trial setting as a denial of his due process rights, the appellate court will be able to look back and see that she selected a meaningful and reasonable trial date. And she did that by talking in depth about discovery. For instance, she pointed out that the Trump team's estimate of the number of pages was overblown because there's so much duplication. She talked about their ability to lawyer up and deal with the discovery process. In every way, she justified the trial date that she selected. There's no reason to believe that a court of appeals won't believe that she acted within her discretion in selecting this date.
Joyce, do you think there was any consideration, or should there have been any consideration, of the fact that this does come on the eve of Super Tuesday? Because the case that Donald Trump and his lawyers have made is that this is the Biden Justice Department trying to intervene in the election and prevent Donald Trump from being reelected. And in some ways, it makes his case for him when he says, look, I should be out campaigning. This is a big day on the 5th, the next day, and instead I'll be stuck in a courtroom right where they want me. Do you think the judge thought about that at all?
You know, I doubt that she did, Willie. Judges just aren't used to making political calculations. I know that that sounds naive, and people may have trouble believing that. Donald Trump is certainly going to make hay out of this and run with it. But judges really have a lot of control in their own little fiefdoms. And one of those pieces of control is setting calendars and expecting people to show up when they're told to show up. There's an analogy here. It's not a great one because it was a civil case, not a criminal case. But when Pat Robertson was running for president many years ago, I guess I'm dating myself now, Pat Robertson had filed a civil defamation case. And he tried to get the judge to change the trial setting because it actually coincided with Super Tuesday. And the judge, also in the District of Columbia, told Robertson, look, you're in the justice system now. You're in the court system. You can either show up or you can dismiss your defamation case. Well, Trump doesn't have the option of dismissing this case. But like Robertson, despite Super Tuesday, he has to show up when the judge orders him to do so. That is not optional here.